There is one important difference between myths and fairy tales, one that Joseph Campbell makes abundantly clear. Because while the basic structure of the hero's journey, the universal pattern that Campbell discovered, can be seen underlining both, the end goals of these two genres are very different in scale. Fairy tales are essentially myths of maturity, where boys and girls transform into men and women respectively, which is why so many of them end with a marriage. The gift that is bestowed to the hero at the end of fairy tales is the gift of maturity, achieved through a kind of second birth, where the boy must die for the man to be born. But in myths, the gift that the hero achieves extends far beyond his own life. It's a transcendent or ultimate gift, an object of such power it can heal the entire world, which is why these gifts are so often depicted by objects that symbolize wholeness, magical rings, holy chalices, or in the case of Jason and the Argonauts, a golden fleece, where gold, the only metal that doesn't oxidize, stands for the immortal substance. And to achieve the gift of wholeness, our hero had to pass through the rocks of duality, which are the fragments of our existence. From there, he descended to the collective unconscious of Greece, a world of witches and bullfights reminiscent of Minoan Crete. And down there, in the world of adventure, Campbell says the hero must conclude his journey in a sacred marriage with the great goddess herself. But first, the fleece. Jason had done it. He had just completed the most challenging task of his life, to yoke the bronze-legged fire-breathing bulls of King Aeetes, harvest a huge plot of land, sow the teeth of a dragon, and kill the demon warriors that came springing from the ground. And it would have never been achieved without the help of young Medea, the princess who went against the wishes of her father, who wanted nothing more than to see Jason burn from the breath of his bulls, or cut down by the warriors that came out of the ground. But neither of these happened, as Jason was protected by the magical potion given to him in secret by the love-struck princess. Only the night before, Medea had promised her maids that she would give Jason a poison, but now her secret was revealed for all to see. The king, known for his ruthlessness, would not have spared her, and so, in the middle of the night, Medea cuts one of her beautiful locks, a symbolic end to her maidenhood, and escapes from the palace, reaching Jason's ships by nightfall, asking the hero to take her with him. And she has one more gift to give them. Jason may have triumphed, but he is still missing the Golden Fleece, the purpose of his journey. The fleece, no less, was guarded by a terrible dragon who had defeated all heroes that came before him. Medea could help, as this priestess of Hecate knew all herbs that came out of the fruit-bearing earth, and one that could put the dragon to sleep. Jason, who was glad to see her anyway, agrees to take her with him. At dawn, they sailed to the place where the golden ram sent by Zeus had been sacrificed back to the father of the gods so many years before. From the little temple near the shore, they took a path into the sacred grove and to the giant oak tree where the fleece lied hanging, shimmering in golden hues reflecting throughout the dark forest. Suddenly, from afar, a terrible hiss was heard across long riverbanks and endless forest that resounded throughout Colchis till it reached the Rione of Georgia and the Aras of Armenia, the two great rivers that flow from the Caucasus and into the Black Sea. Then came the dragon. There is no image more familiar in mythology than that of a hero who kills a dragon, steals its treasure, and marries a princess. But what does it mean? Well, remember that day when you learned that you are going to die for the first time? I sure do. I must have been around 5, and if memory serves, it was one of the worst days of my life thus far. Talking about it with my friends, I learned that I was not alone. Many of you could relate also. But if that's the case, then what did we think before, exactly? That we were immortal? Well, according to Campbell, almost. Because for him, we come into this world almost as gods, having no idea about what it's all about. As we gain this precious knowledge, we also gain the tragic knowledge that one day we too shall die. But what if there was a way back? Campbell believed that there is, and the reason why myths, he said, sound childish is only because they have retained within them a secret that only children know, that we're not exactly from here. What is lost in childhood, the secret of immortality, is regained in myth during the peak of the hero's journey, where the hero finally steals a great treasure, an ultimate object, often made of gold, the immortal metal, which in fact is not made out of any earthly substance. It's what Terence McKenna describes so poetically as the transcendental object at the end of time. How much of that is literally true, and whether after death, as the great poet Wilfred Owen said, our soul lies shaded by the shaking of great wings, high-pillowed on calm pillows of God's making, or whether yet this thin and sodden head confuses more and more with the low mold, is impossible to know. Yet the image of immortality, the Golden Fleece, is in us all. And perhaps it's there for a reason. But now, the dragon approaches, like the black smoke, the poet says, that rises above forest in great fires, in dark and twisted rings. So did the snake coil its scale-ridden body on the sacred oak, ready to strike. Medea called the ancient spells of her goddess, the night-walking queen Hecate. And now you'll know why Campbell was not popular among Christians, because in images like this one, he had no problem reading the return to Eden. The sacred oak, the Greek vres, is the tree of immortal life, the second of the 2 forbidden trees described in Genesis that were found in the Garden of Eden. And just like in the Bible, so in the story of the Argonauts, the snake is still guarding the tree. But in contrast, woman, instead of tempting man, now guides him back to its treasure. The monster tries to hold its head above the earth, desiring nothing but to close both Jason and Medea inside. But slowly it falls into a deep slumber. Jason runs up to the tree and steals the Golden Fleece, the fleece of immortality, calling on Medea to follow him while both ran back to his ships. The sun had risen and the heroes took off the shores of Colchis, never to return. Their task seemed complete. But wait, not so fast. Because for the heroes can return home with their treasure, Campbell tells us they will first be hunted down by those who want the secrets of Eden back in the garden, and through a stage he identified as the magical escape. Because by now, Medea's shameful love had become the talk of an entire city. The king, enraged, sent his son, Medea's brother, with the best of his ships in pursuit of Jason and the Argonauts. The heroes soon realized they won't have enough time to trace their journey back from where they came, and will soon be caught. At the ocean's edge, there is a river, wide and deep enough for a ship to cross. Its mouth splits in two just before joining the sea, and some believe it comes from the Ripea Ori, the Urals. The Greeks called it Istros, while we call it the Danube. Through this mouth, with the enemy fleet closing in behind them, Jason sails his ship, the mighty Argo, near nightfall, and just a few miles behind the Argo, Medea's brother receives a message. His sister wants to meet him in secret and plead for mercy. He agrees, thinking that words can change her mind, and hopes that he can bring her home back alive. But oh, love, you great destroyer, may you now turn your weapons against my own enemies, since Medea's mind you have already conquered. The poet laments, as the two lovers had devised a plan. And just as Medea's brother approaches, Jason leaps from behind and strikes him dead with his sword. They both run back to their ship and take off. Through the Cronian Sea, the Adriatic, and down to the island of the Phaeacians, where the good king of the island will accept them as guests. Upon learning of their crime, however, Medea's murdered brother, the king gives them an ultimatum. Since Medea is still unmarried, she is technically kidnapped and therefore must be returned back to her father. But if she were married, then the king of the Phaeacians and any island of Greece would accept them. And so it is done, because unsurprisingly for a myth, this too ends with a marriage. And so, as the sun rises from the sea, the island is aroused in great festival. The men mix water with wine and bring the sacrificial animals, while the women gather to arrange the wedding bed inside of a sacred grove where Zeus himself was raised when still a child, fed with immortal honey. And on this bed they throw, of course, the Golden Fleece, where the marriage was consummated that same night. As Campbell would explain to us, this was no ordinary marriage, but a sacred one. And he even uses the Greek phrase hieros gamos, or hierogamy, to signify this mythological event where the hero unites with a goddess. Remember what we said in the previous episode, that Medea's image, her connection with the earthly realm through the dark goddess Hecate, her association with bull and snake, so typical of pre-Indo-European Greece, present her as an image of the great mother goddess. The union that Jason achieves is the seal of his achievement, a symbolic return back to the womb, out of which we came with a knowledge of immortality. And it's also the union of Aryan and Minoan, from which Greece was born. I would like to say that our heroes lived happily ever after, but whoever knew the name Medea before our story even began might have suspected otherwise. Because you see, the Great Mother is not easily tamed by the male-oriented world we live in, and in time, she might wreak her revenge. But this, as you might have also suspected, is a story for another time.